What's up, folks? Welcome back to another episode here on All for Speed channel. Today we're finally getting started on the teardown for the Boost District Supercharger that we're going to be installing. So I'm bringing you a quick update on where we're going to begin. Of course, we got to get the car on jack stands, and then we're going to drain the coolant. Once we get the coolant drained, we'll pull out the radiator, get that out of our way, pull out the intake tube, the intake and all that matter. Basically what we have to do to be able to take the intake off, or at least what I'll do, is shut down my fuel pump. I have a kill switch installed in my car. Once I kill that fuel pump and I crank it over a bit, then we'll be able to actually run the fuel down and get the pressure on the gauge down to 0. So when the pressure is empty, or when the pressure is down on the rails and everything, and that fuel is out of the line, basically what that allows us to do is to remove the intake without any fuel squirting everywhere all over the engine bay, which would obviously be bad. Yeah, we'll go from there and start working through. We are gonna get started. What we're gonna do right now is we're gonna turn off the fuel pump. Basically, I have a kill switch for it. Gonna turn it off and crank the car over. That way it runs the last of the fuel out of the lines, kind of relieves all the pressure, and then we'll be able to yeah, see, there's no pressure. So if I turn it off and crank it, it'll just blow that little bit out. And yeah, from there, we'll be able to start disconnecting all the injectors without having to worry about fuel leaking everywhere. So we'll drop the fuel lines and everything like that. All right, and just like that, basically what you missed on video was I was just cranking the car over for a few seconds and it went down to 0. And I knew I shut the fuel pump off because also when I turn the kill switch off and you turn the key on, you don't hear the fuel pump turn on and start priming. So I just cranked it over and the rest of the fuel pressure is out. All right, we got the car jacked up and we have a slight tilt, so it's going more that direction. As soon as I pull that plug, we'll basically have, with the tilt going like this, we'll basically have all the coolant draining straight to that plug, so we'll get the most drainage. Let's do it. All right, plug is pulled, and we'll pop this cap so that we have pressure relief. We'll get better flow, that'll drain quicker. Alright, so we unplugged the intake tube, we unplugged the IAT, the TPS, and all the sensors into the side of the throttle body. Now that that's unplugged, yeah, we'll have to undo the throttle body cable and dismount that. We're going to dismount the PCB, or disconnect the PCB. So just working through it. Alright, so we just disconnected the fan wiring and the coolant, the steam tube. We're going to disconnect. I think I'm going to stop that drain plug down there. It's going pretty slow. And I might move over to this side and dump the lower radiator hose first. See how much we get out that side. It's going to be quite a bit messier, so it's not something I really prefer to do, but it might help us move this drainage a little bit faster. Yeah, we got the radiator cover off here. A couple things that we're going to be disconnecting. The fuel injector plugs, which have a little clip on the back, so we'll have to pop that clip. It's a little metal clip, and then we'll be able to pop those off. And then I do have my throttle cable bolted down to the intake bolt, so we'll remove this whole throttle cable assembly and kind of lay it off to the side. Once the injectors and throttle cable assembly are removed, then we'll remove this fuel line, which goes to the intake rails, the fuel rails. I see here that after draining the fuel pump, I still have a little bit of pressure. So we are gonna expect a little bit of fuel leakage. So what I'll probably do is hold a rag around this when I loosen it. Or I might even loosen it down at the bottom. Might be a smarter idea. We'll see when I get there, but maybe I'll loosen this down at the bottom line and disconnect it down there, so that way if we get any leaks, it doesn't leak down the engine. I think that's the way to go. So fuel rail, fuel injectors, throttle cable, disconnect it. Basically the goal is to disconnect anything that's connected to the intake so we can lift the intake off. And I think once we get that done, that should be it. Oh, there is one PCB line over here I almost forgot about. We'll have to remove this PCB line on this side from the intake, from the side of the intake. And that goes down to the, actually it's a catch can. So we'll remove that as well. Alright, so I took the radiator out and I took it over to the backyard and kind of checked it out, make sure I didn't spill too much in the garage. And it seems like there's definitely a leak in the radiator, something in the fins, maybe one of the welds. So I'll be getting that tested. Alright guys, we're over here at Benny's Radiator Service in Long Beach with Jesus. And he's showing us here on the Griffin radiator exactly what the issue is. So you can see that it's leaking out of all of the corners. So we're gonna be looking for a new radiator. We're gonna take that coolant we drained out and put it back in these old jugs that I saved so that we can get it recycled. But there's some coolant down here on the core support that I'm cleaning up just so it doesn't like keep dripping down in the garage. So we're gonna use the coolant towel. Get that all cleaned up. So got everything here. I'm gonna disconnect these lines from each other. I'll have to disconnect the coolant, temp sensor, and the alternator. Oh, got it. Alternator disconnected. And then now we'll disconnect the fuel injectors. I just want to take a quick moment and thank a couple partners that are going to be helping me out on this build. I know, or on this version 2.0 that some people are calling MaliBeast. That supercharger over here, right there. Rosh at Boost District and Pinto, both really taking care of me, helping me out, teaching me about boosted applications, and you know, showing me what it takes to get this thing on the car. So they'll be part of this as well, and I'm super thankful. I wouldn't put this on record, but maybe one of the most exciting partnerships I've landed so far. So I'm just super stoked to add some boost to the MaliBeast. It's been a long time dream, a long time goal of mine. So huge thanks to them. There's other companies here that I'm in conversation with as well at this point, at least while we're starting to tear down. But I'm sure we're gonna have a couple others here that are really gonna be helping support us and contribute. So stay tuned for that. Back to the build. All right, we've lowered the car back down because we don't need it up that high, and it gets easier to work on when it's lower. So move this over. these fuel injectors, I kind of forgot. I started to take the clips off, but I forgot you just push them in and they pull off. There's a couple that are tight against the intake, but we didn't want to loosen up the rail too much and have the injectors kind of pop and spray everywhere. So before I loosen it up to get wiggle room on that, I basically wanted to disconnect down here the fuel rail at the hard line. And by disconnecting the fuel rail here, all my pressure kind of comes out. And now I'll feel more comfortable just taking the intake, lifting the intake rails, getting those last clips off, and removing the intake. Alright, so we're getting ready to take off the intake, and the bolts by the Holly rails, they're actually pretty close. So usually what happens is if you don't use like a 1/4 inch drive and get like a really skinny socket, even then your socket is gonna likely scratch up the fuel rails on the inside. So on the inside of your rails, you're just gonna have these like shiny lines where the socket was rubbing the whole time. So what we're gonna do is just do a little bit of tape here, and this should prevent that. We'll tape around the socket. There we go. So just a little bit of tape around the socket, so that while it's rubbing, it's not scratching. There we go. Loosen that up. You can even start these by hand and gun them off. They're slightly longer bolts, but this works as long as your wrench doesn't go flying off and scratch your tire. Here's where we get in the engine bay. Speed wrench would really come in handy here. Got that. Now we gotta get the MAF sensor unplugged on the back, and we're gonna disconnect the oil pressure sending unit. That way we don't break it off. And we're gonna disconnect the vacuum line to the brake booster. And for that, it's a 1/4 inch drive. So we'll need a different size. Another thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna tighten these rails back up while I'm here. I'm gonna disconnect the rail right here too, because I don't want this fuel line getting in the way. I'm gonna have to jimmy, like, kind of shimmy this thing out. Looks like I used plumber's tape on there, even though I didn't need to. Dumping some fuel out of the rail still. So we want to be careful about that going over the paint. So we'll tilt this back like that. The intake is off. Boy, is it dirty in here. Actually, it's not that bad. give it a wipe down. So we wipe it down, being careful not to wipe anything into the valves. All right, we're not going to be able to stick tape. We need to clean it with some brake cleaner. My guess is that there's some sort of spacer that I haven't received yet that goes in here, and that little spacer is basically what's going to give us the clearance we need. So, kind of interesting here. Let's see if I have something to put in between. Alright, just for clearance purposes, we're going to put this little piece of wood down in here. And we're going to remove this PCV line for the catch can. So our PCV line is in the way a bit right there, but that's okay. Just for visuals. All right, a little moment of truth. We do have a piece of wood underneath the blower for now. See it down there? So it's probably a little higher than it'll rest. But not seeing any issue. Let's get some light under there. Alright. So you can see the hood has plenty of clearance. Let's get this closed. Alright guys, the hood is closed. And you can see up in here, it's kind of hard. But if you look, I don't think we're having any clearance issues. The pulley's cleared. I'm gonna crawl underneath and reach my hand. I'll let you guys know. All right, guys, we're going up underneath. You can see, here's the supercharger, here's the hood. You can see better than me. What's that clearance look like? I was able to put my hand up under there, so pretty sure we got the clearance we need. Be sure to like, subscribe, make sure you follow my Instagram. There's a lot of content I have prepared for everyone, and I'll be putting, this whole 64 Chevelle build on there. The 69 Chevelle Supercharger and some suspension work is on here. And we have the Drift Chevelle, quick peek. We have the Drift Chevelle that'll be coming soon after a 71 Chevelle that we'll be doing some pretty fun stuff with. Already got a lot of interest in a couple partners I'm working with, but that will come third in line. So right now we're taking a break from the 64 build. We're gonna do this great upgrade on the 69. So right back to it.